Ward Mansion seemed to exude its own importance on that cold, windy night. Marble corridors echoing with footsteps, gilded frames lined up like a row of mirrors, chandeliers dripping warm light onto porcelain vases, and carpets with designs reminiscent of old maps of invented countries. Mara Collins, recently hired by the cleaning company, crossed the lobby holding a rag and a metal bucket, her burgundy uniform contrasting with the cream of the walls. She didn't usually look up when she worked, but she did so reflexively before a nearly life-size portrait in the music room. A boy of 4, maybe 5, with light bangs, lake-like eyes, and a navy sweater. She felt memories ignite in her body like a match struck in a dry box. The cold dormitory of St. Bridget home, the smell of thin soup, the creaking of the iron beds, the brief laugh of a boy named Eli who shared a piece of bread with her on Sundays. "Sir, that boy lived with me in the orphanage," she blurted out, even before realizing she wasn't alone. At the door, Julian Ward, the heir who managed the family fortune like someone organizing a library, interrupted his conversation with the counselor and turned slowly. Black suit, white handkerchief, a discreet watch made for someone who hates telling time. The sentence hung between them, like a crookedly hung painting. Mara breathed, ready to apologize, but the gaze of the portrait grew within her until it became a painful certainty. That child wasn't just a face in oil. He was the boy who one day promised to return for her and vanished when a black car parked in front of St. Bridget's gate in the rain, taking away his secrets and the only friend who turned the cold into play. Before we delve into this amazing story, tell me which city and state you're watching from. Leave a comment and I'll reply with gratitude. And while you're at it, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and like this video. We want to share more stories like this. Julian didn't move immediately, which in the Ward environment meant control. Power in that house never spoke loudly, it only changed the temperature of the air. "You said orphanage?" he finally asked, in a tone without sharp edges. Mara felt the skin of her hands tighten against the metal of the bucket, and for a moment she wanted to flee from herself. But there was a childhood call in the portrait that cannot be answered politely. St. Bridget home. He stayed in bed near the window because he was afraid of thunder. His name was Eli. The advisor, Victor Crane, let out a short laugh of disbelief, like someone swatting away a mosquito. "That is clearly impossible," he said, and explained to the heir what Julian had known since childhood. That portrait was of Lionel Ward, the firstborn who died at 6 years old from a fulminant fever. The little prince whom the family had immortalized in oil as a domestic altar. "Miss Collins, right? The history of this house is public. You must have heard it poorly told." Mara didn't back down, not out of courage, but because the memory of nights sharing blankets with Eli weighed more than composure. "I've been cleaning up other people's stories for years, sir. I know when dust hides something and when dust is just dust." She stared at the portrait, returned to Julian's eyes and said slowly, as if reading an inventory file, "This boy had a crooked baby tooth here and a scratch on his eyebrow that he said he got from the corner of the bed. And he said that when he grew up, he was going to learn how to fix the city winds." The counselor moved to interrupt, but Julian raised his hand, a small gesture with a braking effect, and approached the painting. There was, indeed, a tiny scratch almost invisible under the yellow light. There was also an old annoyance raising its head, a grey folder kept in the safe of an office that smelled of old paper, sealed adoption documents, dates that never sat perfectly side by side. Julian's nights were filled with spreadsheets and silence. The death of his father, Sebastian Ward, had left him with, beyond the numbers, a set of unwritten rules. Don't open old doors, don't move portraits, don't utter the word replace in the home of people who had learned to polish memories until they shone like gold. Even so, in that early morning, as the cleaning crew was already dismantling the cart and the mansion was regaining its shine, Julian went down alone to the mahogany office that had belonged to his grandfather, the architect of fortune and silences. The safe recognized the combination like an old dog and opened with a weary iron sigh. The grey folder was there, with a strand of old dust and something more recent, as if fingers had touched it a short while ago. Inside, a county envelope stamped adoption records, sealed, and beneath it a smaller sheet, signed by a forgotten name. Sister Agnes Doyle, director of St. Bridget Home between 1996 and 2005. Julian didn't remember Agnes from any gala dinner. There was also a receipt for a generous donation to the institution in that same decade, made by a satellite company of Ward Holdings, and a yellowed, unlettered handwritten letter. Sebastian, as agreed, the child is healthy. Mrs. Ward believes the process was ethical. Don't dissuade her from that. V. The V at the bottom chilled his blood as much as it lit the lamp of understanding. Victor Crane, the counsellor who had inherited from his grandfather the role of keeping the world in order, had always been inches away from every secret. Julian leaned back in his chair, feeling the wood bite into his back. His failing memory whispered that he didn't have enough memories before the age of 7, only loose flashes of a blue room, strange hands adjusting his tie, and voices inventing memories as if reciting a prayer. If Lionel had died at 6, how could there have been a faceless earlier childhood in him? Something didn't add up. Neither did the night. The next day, Mara arrived at the mansion half an hour early for fear of being dismissed. She was greeted by the housekeeper, Mrs. Doyle, no relation to Sister Agnes, but a shocking surname that made her more alert than the coffee and pretended her body wasn't trembling. You know that in houses like that, the truth is usually worth less than the perfect good morning. While dusting a sideboard, he noticed Julian's shadow approaching. He didn't have the face of someone apologizing or demanding his resignation. He came with the care of someone carrying water in a bowl. If you still have the energy for this subject, I want to ask you 2 things, he said directly. That you tell me everything you remember about St. Bridget, and agree to go there with me today. Mara looked at the flannel as if confirming she had hands. Then she raised her head. I remember smells. The soup, the iron, the rain seeping through the cracked stained glass window in the hallway. I remember Eli keeping a smooth little stone that he said came from the sea, even though we'd never seen the sea. I remember the black car at the gate and Sister Agnes saying he had a family. I remember his promise to return. His voice faltered, not his courage. Julian thanked him with the same restrained gesture of someone closing a difficult deal. At 3 then, the advisor intercepted him in the hallway like an air inspector. Julian, the council needs you this afternoon. The heir replied without raising his voice. Today, I am the council. There was no phrase more Ward-like, but it now came impure with a new element, that he would act against the ancestral custom of hiding cracks. St. Bridget Home was a 40-minute drive away, past an overpass that exchanged the luxury of the upscale area for a neighborhood of renovated factories. In front of the peeling brick building, a playground with empty swings creaked like a reminder that couldn't decide between sweetness and pain. Sister Agnes no longer ran the home. They were greeted by the current director, Ms. Patel, a woman with attentive eyes and a way of speaking who usually apologized for existing, but not that afternoon. When Julian said his last name, she shrugged. Ward, we have an annual donation in your name. Or rather, in the name of a foundation connected to your company. He nodded and introduced Mara. She grew up here. She knew a boy named Eli. Ms. Patel led them to the file room, which smelled of old paper and disinfectant. Names often change, Mr. Ward. Sometimes a child arrives with a nickname. Sometimes they leave with another. She stacked boxes on the floor until she found a faded green binder. Inside, cards with hurried handwriting. Here, Eli, no last name. Entry 1998. Found on a station staircase, newborn. Details. Small scar on right eyebrow. Best friend, Mara C. Note, adopted in 2003, confidential process. Miss Patel whispered, confidential is often an understatement. Julian asked for a copy, but her phone rang before the sheets went through the typewriter. Her gaze changed color. It's for you, Mr. Ward. He answered. On the other end, Victor Crane didn't waste any breath. Come back, now. You don't know what you're opening. Julian hung up with a later that left no room for doubt. Mara, who had learned to read faces like one reads a typewriter manual, commented, "Too many people are getting paid to keep this secret quiet." Ms. Patel agreed with a sad half-smile, "And too few people are getting paid to keep it out." They returned to the mansion as twilight streaked across the copper sky. The house seemed taller, as if it had leapt upwards to defend itself. Victor awaited them in the lobby with two lawyers whose ties said no before the owner even opened his mouth. Mr. Ward, allowing this young woman to delve into the family history is a risk to the company's reputation. Mara took a half step back, but Julian stopped her with a look. This young woman has a name and a memory, and perhaps she was the only living witness to what you call reputation. The advisor, who knew every vulnerable point of the heir, placed his hand on the boy's portrait. Lionel Ward died in 1999. You were legally adopted that same year. Your father protected your mother from grief with a difficult decision. The rest is gossip. Julian breathed, as if opening an inner vault. So why does the difficult need an unmarked letter and a donation receipt to buy silence? The lawyers spoke of lawsuits, damages, and narrative. Mara could only look at the portrait and count the years of each. 1999, 2003, 6 and 7, bed near the window, rain on the cracked stained glass. If Lionel died, why does the little boy in the portrait have Eli's scar? She asked without asking permission. The question hung between the chandelier and the lamps, dangling like a giant pendulum. Victor smiled, the first genuine smile that night, because he could finally use his favorite blade. Because, my dear, portraits are retouched. And he revealed without shame what old houses do with their own pain. Little Lionel had a different face. The painter harmonized some things at Mrs. Ward's request. The scar you see is a memory of his mother, not proof. It was Mara who then retreated. Not because of logical defeat, but because power, when it piles up explanations, usually wins over the skin. Julian noticed this and decided to open another door. He led everyone, the advisor, the lawyers, the housekeeper, and Mara herself, to the grand piano in the music room. On the bench, under the lid, a secret compartment held small, sentimental treasures that her mother had collected. A baby tooth, 2 childhood drawings of houses with chimneys, and a small blue velvet bag. Inside the bag, a small white stone, smooth as if it had been rolled by the sea and time. My mother used to say this was a souvenir from the coast of her childhood. She hated the sea, and I didn't remember any beach. Mara put her hands to her mouth, as if stifling a scream to avoid waking the past. He called it a wind stone. He said his parents had left it with him. It was the most precious thing he kept. The coincidence was too great to be just wind. Victor shook his head. Objects travel. Julian didn't fight with the wall. He preferred the key. Then let's travel to the end. He picked up the phone, dialed Ms. Patel and asked a favor, to check the records to see if any object had been catalogued with baby Eli. The reply came minutes later, transforming the marble into a movable surface. Extra note in 1999, on the basket's record, smooth white stone. The counsellor tried one last blow with the old weapon of polite sarcasm. "Mr. Ward, are you going to trade your story for a stone?" Julian replied without looking at him. "No, for a truth." The night brought the press, because a great secret doesn't move without wind, and it also brought Eleanor Ward, the mother, with a compact sob that didn't want an audience. She went straight up to the drawing room and stared at the portrait as if begging forgiveness from her own ghost. "I didn't know how to tell you, Julian," she confessed, and the name that came out wasn't Julian, but son. The counsellor tried to intercede. "Mrs. Ward, we don't need to..." She raised her hand, and in that house, when Eleanor raised her hand, even portraits fell silent. "I'm ashamed of the means, not of the love." She sat in the silk armchair, breathed through her memory, and began to unravel decades. Lionel had indeed died. Her husband had dissolved her in medication and travels. Victor had one day brought the possibility of an adoption without bureaucracy, because you couldn't bear another 6 months of back and forth. A baby with lake-like eyes, a new name, a new portrait, an old life rearranged to fit in the society newspaper. I accepted it, Julian. I wanted you in every way. I just didn't want the guilt, and I swept under the rug what didn't belong. The heir nodded with a pain that didn't hurt his mother. It hurt the foundation. He turned to Mara and saw in her not an inconvenient witness, but an anchor, someone who knew the boyish name of the man he was. "Eli," he said slowly, testing the syllable like someone trying a key in a gate. The word opened a courtyard within him. He remembered the rain on the cracked stained glass. He remembered the fear of thunder. He remembered promising to return to someone who didn't know what abandonment was, only that it hurt. Mara finally cried, not from great sadness, but from seeing the reunion between name and face. "You came back," she whispered. Victor realized the house was slipping through his fingers like water, and he did what shadow managers do when they lose the sun. He threatened to sue the institution, questioned the legality of opening the records, and contact people. Julian turned his face away, and for the first time in his life, spoke to him as if cutting a cord once and for all. "You worked for my grandfather and my father. I thank you. But from now on, I work for something that won't make me sick at 50. Right there in front of lawyers who were swallowing their saliva, he announced 3 decisions. The creation of a reparation fund for irregular adoptions sponsored by partner companies in the late 1990s. The voluntary opening of his own records to the prosecutor's office before they demand it of me and I appear obedient. And the public acknowledgement on the website and in the holding company's reports that Julian Ward was born Eli, a child of St. Bridget. My last name can remain Ward out of love for my mother, but my name carries a boy who slept near the window. The news startled the press on the sidewalk like a flock of birds. Inside, Eleanor embraced her son with the exact force of someone asking for forgiveness and offering a home. Mara hesitated before approaching. The hierarchy of grand halls weighs heavily, but Julian extended his hand to her, including her in the inner circle of those who make history with less stage presence and more truth. "You kept pieces of me that I didn't know," he thanked her. "I only held the end of the thread," she replied. "You're the one who pulled." The following days rewrote the city's script. Some columnists tried to turn the confession into a scandal, others into a ready-made lesson. Julian didn't dispute the narrative. He preferred the work. He visited St. Bridget with a team of architects to renovate dormitories and reopen the children's wing. He assembled a task force with the Public Defender's Office to track suspicious adoptions. He invited current and former residents to form a real council that would give Mara more seats than executives. In the music room, the portrait remained. not as an altar but as a question. The frame gained a new plaque with 2 lines: Lionel Ward, 1993-1999, Eli Julian Ward, 1999. This house has room for both of you. The installation ceremony was intimate. Eleanor, the housekeeper, a violinist who played a short piece, and Mara, who brought the windstone in a small bag. Julian placed it without a speech in an acrylic box at the foot of the portrait. "To remember where the wind blows from, that sustains," he said, and the golden lampshade made the smooth surface shine as if it were a miniature sea. Victor didn't show up. He sent an extrajudicial notification that ended up in a drawer with other relics from a time when politeness and fear walked hand in hand. The prosecutor's office opened an investigation, but Julian's voluntary gesture reversed the forces. Instead of hunter and hunted, they became companions in a difficult sweep. Mara's phone began to ring with voices of an old sleeper. "Do you remember me? I was in the corner bed. I was in the kitchen. I was adopted and with each call, she understood that the cleaning lady who screams unintentionally in gilded halls is, sometimes, the only one holding the right lamp in the dark corridor of the world. One rainy night, weeks later, the mansion seemed less tall. The lights didn't seem to want to shine on anyone. They only wanted to keep the hallways warm. Julian, Eli, walked to the portrait and sat on the piano bench without opening the lid. Mara came from the foyer with the cleaning cart, stopped at the threshold, and asked if she could finish polishing the handrail. "You can, but first, tell me, did I promise to come back?" She smiled like someone returning a whole toy. "You did. And look, in this world full of worthless promises, this one was the one that mattered." He nodded, and for the first time touched the corner of the frame with his fingertip, exactly where the scar under the boy's eyebrow seemed to want to emerge from the painting. The rain outside lashed against the stained glass windows as it had before lashed against the iron bedroom. The wind now didn't need fixing. It needed to be heard. And it was in this music of water and brass that the Ward mansion learned a new lesson. That rich stories are not those without cracks. These are the windows that open so that truth can circulate without asking permission. The house breathed differently. Mara put the bucket back on the cart. Julian stood up. The hallway, once a museum, seemed like a possible river. And when they passed each other without hierarchy, without fear, without noise, it was as if the whole city had straightened an old painting that insisted on remaining crooked. Not to forget the pain, but to finally be able to look at it head on and move on. And if this story touched your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Share this video with someone you love. Click now to share it. Like this video, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of the upcoming stories we're preparing with great care for you.